Are you certain that once the account closure is finalized, Maya Reed will no longer exist? The people you know won't be able to find you." The voice on the phone was professional, but I could hear a hint of curiosity. "Never to be found again," I repeated to myself. That sounded perfect. I let out a small, bitter laugh, then collected myself. "I'm certain," I said, my voice firm. The person on the other end seemed a little surprised by my resolve, but quickly recovered. "Very well, Miss Reed. The process will take 2 weeks. At that time, we will provide you with your new identity. We wish you a new life." 2 weeks. A brand new life. I hoped so. After hanging up, I stood and felt a numbness in my legs. I dragged myself to the side of the road, hailed a cab, and went home. I had just stepped out of the shower and was about to get into bed when Ethan pushed the door open. The smell of alcohol filled the room. The moment he came in, he found me, his eyes locking on me as if I were a beacon. He stumbled towards me and wrapped his arms around me, whining like a child. "Honey, why didn't you come and get me? I was waiting for you. You smell so good." As he spoke, he buried his face in my neck, his hands starting to wander. I watched his greedy expression, and my mind drifted away. I remembered how he had chased me for 3 years, doing everything he could to prove his love. I remembered when his mother was against us being together, he held me tight and said, "It doesn't matter if my mom doesn't agree. I'll never marry anyone else. We'll just be together forever. Don't worry, I won't marry anyone but you." Later, when his mother saw her words weren't working, she practically kidnapped him, trying to force him into an arranged marriage with the Park family's daughter. When Ethan managed to get away, he was pale and thin. I found out later he had been on a hunger strike to protest his mother's plan. From that day on, no matter how his mother threatened me, I never gave in because I knew someone was fighting with me. I should be grateful I overheard that conversation today. Otherwise, how much longer would I have been fooled? Would I have found out on his wedding day? Or maybe only when I was pointed out as the other woman? I pushed down the ache in my heart and gently pushed him away. "I'm a little tired today," I said softly. Ethan didn't push it. He looked heartbroken, but he helped me into bed and then held me from behind. "Then you should get some rest. I feel like you've lost weight recently." I pretended to be asleep and didn't answer. The next morning, I woke up to find Ethan changing in front of the closet. When he heard me move, he turned and came over, bending down to kiss my forehead. "Good morning, wife. It's New Year's Eve. I'm taking you out. Get up and get dressed." Before I could say no, he had already gone downstairs. I changed my clothes and went down. The cook saw me and greeted me warmly. "Madame is awake. Let me get you some porridge." Ethan and I weren't married, but he always told the staff and his employees to call me madam. He said I would be his one and only madam, but now, in half a month, he would have a real wife, and my time as the unofficial madam would be over. I smiled to myself, a sad, self-mocking smile, and went to eat breakfast. After breakfast, Ethan sent the driver away. He said he wanted to spend some time alone with me, so he drove. During the day, we just wandered around the city. He took me to a garden restaurant inside an aquarium. The whole time, he was incredibly attentive. The moment I looked even a little tired, he would find a place for us to sit and rest. That night, just as I thought we were heading home, Ethan drove the car up a mountain. He must have seen the confusion on my face because he explained, "You once said that watching fireworks from the mountain must be beautiful. How about we go and see for ourselves tonight?" It was something I had said without thinking while scrolling through videos on my phone, so casual that I had almost forgotten it myself. But he had remembered. I didn't say anything, and he didn't seem to mind. He could probably tell I was in a low mood, so he kept talking, trying to cheer me up. Ethan was usually a quiet man, but with me, he was always talkative, as if he had a never-ending supply of things to say. We reached the top of the mountain in about half an hour. The view of the city at night was beautiful. Just as the clock was about to strike midnight, marking the end of 2024, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and then looked at me. I was still looking down at the city lights. He seemed to let out a small sigh of relief, then quickly unlocked his phone to reply to the message. I tilted my head just slightly and could clearly see the screen. "Ethan, I'm so lonely spending New Year's Eve by myself. Can you come and keep me company?" It was from Chloe. I saw Ethan type back a reply. Don't be silly. Chloe's next message was flirty. But I'm really scared of the dark. I need my big brother to stay with me. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then typed, "Okay, wait for me." Before he could look up, I turned my head away. I heard his voice next to me. "Maya, something urgent came up at the company. I have to go back. I'm sorry I can't be here with you for New Year's." I just calmly said, pretending I hadn't seen anything. But my hands, resting on the hood of the car, were clenched so tightly, my knuckles were white. He was gone in less than a minute. He was in such a rush that he forgot he had taken the only car. He didn't seem to consider how I would get back down. And on this mountain, there were no ride-hailing services. As I thought about that, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand, a dull ache spreading through my chest. The second hand on my watch hit 12 and fireworks exploded from the base of the mountain. They were magnificent, dazzling. It was truly beautiful. I knew Ethan had prepared this for me. But now the person who had prepared it was with another woman. As if to prove my thought, my phone vibrated in my hand. I opened it to see a message from an unknown number. The moment I read it, I knew it was from Chloe Park. She had sent a photo of herself sitting in Ethan's arms. In the picture, Ethan was looking down at her with a smile in his eyes. The background was clearly their home. The message read, "We're getting married. Ethan has already realized you're not worth it. You should know your place and leave as soon as possible." My hand tightened around the phone. Those 3 words, "not worth it," pierced me deeply, as if they were being carved into my heart, seeping into every part of me until it was hard to breathe. The fireworks ended and the mountain became dark and silent. My phone died from the cold, and now there wasn't a single light on the mountain, except for the faint glow of the moon. Snowflakes started to fall. I knew if I stayed on the mountain, they would find my body in the morning. I had no choice but to start walking down. When I was truly surrounded by darkness, fear started to creep in. I'm actually terrified of the dark and have always been scared of ghost stories. Ethan seemed to have forgotten that about me. I walked the entire mountain path in the freezing cold, my fear a constant companion. After a while, I went numb. It took me 4 hours to reach a spot where I could finally call a taxi. When I got home, my face was pale and my lips were blue. The house was dark. The housekeeper had gone home and Ethan was with his fiancée. I let out a shaky breath. This was how it was supposed to be, wasn't it? I was nothing to him. Of course he should be with his fiancée. The next day I was shaken awake. I opened my eyes groggily and saw Ethan's anxious face. "Maya, you have a fever. I'm taking you to the hospital." In a daze, I was carried to the car. My mind was a blur. Why was he back? Wasn't he supposed to be with his fiancée? As my head started to clear, I saw the bright daylight outside the car window and realized it was already noon. In the car, Ethan held me tightly, and as soon as we got to the hospital, he rushed me to the emergency room. Sitting in the doctor's office, I felt too dizzy to even sit up straight. Ethan stood beside me, holding me in a protective, if awkward, embrace. The whole time, he was visibly nervous, asking the doctor over and over about what to do. When it was time for my IV drip, the doctor even said to me, "You should cherish such a good boyfriend." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. A great boyfriend who just climbed out of his fiancée's bed. Does that count as good? Throughout the hospital visit, Ethan never let me walk. He carried me everywhere. When the nurse gave me the injection, he held my head against his chest, comforting me like a child. "It's okay, don't be scared. Just a little pinch, it won't hurt." But all of this, everything I was going through, was because of him. I wanted to tell him I wasn't afraid, that this little pain was nothing compared to the terror of last night. But I didn't say anything. Speaking up would only give him another chance to put on a show. Right now, he looked like the perfect, attentive boyfriend. No one would ever guess he had a fiancée. Even I was almost fooled. I lay on the hospital bed and Ethan tucked the blanket around me, asking if I felt unwell anywhere else. I just shook my head and closed my eyes, not wanting to talk to him. I eventually fell asleep. When I woke up, Ethan was gone. The IV bag was almost empty. I pulled out the needle and got out of bed to go to the bathroom. As I came out, I saw Ethan holding Chloe's waist as they walked out of the obstetrician's office. I quickly hid back in the restroom, but I could still hear their conversation. The baby is already 2 months old. You're going to be a mother now, so you can't be so headstrong anymore, Ethan's gentle voice said. Chloe clung to his arm playfully. Then you have to watch me from now on. The baby needs its daddy, too. Okay, Ethan said, his voice full of affection. The wedding is in less than half a month. You shouldn't worry about anything. Don't tire yourself or the baby out. As their voices faded, I stood frozen in place. When I finally came to my senses, I realized my heart was twisted in agony. I clutched my chest, bending over as I gasped for air. Large teardrops started to fall, one after another. They already had a child, 2 months along. They had been together for 2 months, and I had been completely in the dark. If I hadn't overheard that conversation at the bar, how much longer would it have taken me to find out? I let out a bitter laugh and raised my hand to wipe the tears from my face. My hand felt cold. I looked down and saw the ring. Ethan had given it to me. He had gotten down on one knee, looking up at me nervously, his eyes filled with only me. His voice trembled as he said, Maya, will you be with me for the rest of our lives? I truly love you, and I swear I'll never marry anyone but you. It was the kind of talk any sensible person wouldn't believe, but I did. The intensity of my love for him then was matched only by the depth of my heartbreak now. I collected myself and left the restroom. My hand was now empty, with only a faint mark where the ring used to be. The ring itself, undoubtedly expensive, was left on the sink. It wasn't until 10 o'clock that night that Ethan rushed back into the hospital room. As soon as he came in, he knelt before me as I sat on the bed. Before I could react, he took out the ring I had left behind and gently slipped it back on my finger. He held my hand, looked up at me, and said with adoration in his voice, Darling, didn't you realize you lost your ring? How could you be so careless? Don't lose it again. This is the proof of our marriage. The tenderness in his eyes was still there, but I couldn't feel anything for him anymore. This relationship was stained beyond repair. I didn't answer his question. Instead, I asked, Where did you go today? I looked straight into his eyes and caught a flicker of guilt, but it was gone in a second. I had to deal with something at the company, he said. When I came back to the ward, you were gone. Hearing his lie, I felt a deep exhaustion wash over me. I didn't say anything, just turned my gaze to the television. Ethan thought my silence was because I was upset with him. He tried to coax me. Honey, how about we go horseback riding at the ranch tomorrow? You've always wanted to go, haven't you? The doctor said you need more sunlight. I didn't say yes or no. I was tired of dealing with his lies. I just wanted to wait quietly until the day I could leave. The next day, Ethan took me to a horse ranch in the northern part of the city. When we arrived, I saw that Chloe was also there. I had only heard about her from others before, but this was the first time I was seeing her in person. She had an air of elegance about her, clearly a young woman from a wealthy family. Standing next to Ethan, they looked like a perfect match. I felt a wave of bitterness. I thought that now that the real leading lady was here, Ethan would ignore me. But to my surprise, he still held my hand tightly. Maya, come on. Let me teach you how to ride a horse. It was as if he didn't even see Chloe. He didn't even glance her way. He took me to pick a gentle horse, helped me get on, and then taught me how to ride, his hands guiding mine. I was actually very interested in horseback riding, and for a little while, I forgot about everything else. After about half an hour, I said I was tired. Ethan immediately stopped and took me back to the rest area. We had barely sat down for 2 minutes when I noticed Chloe had left. 2 more minutes passed, and Ethan said, Maya, sit here for a while. I'll go get you some water. The little bit of warmth I had felt from his attentive care suddenly vanished. After he walked a few meters away, I quietly got up and followed him. I followed him to a secluded spot behind some trees, where Chloe was already waiting. As soon as she saw Ethan, she rushed over to him. He caught her and frowned. Didn't I tell you we should pretend not to know each other before the wedding? If Maya makes a scene, it will cause a lot of trouble for both of our families. This was something Ethan had told her before, I gathered, but Chloe just acted playful. I missed you, baby. Besides, she didn't notice anything. The she was obviously me. As soon as she said that, I saw Ethan's frown relax. He looked at her with a helpless expression, and then I watched them kiss. They were locked together, inseparable. Watching them, I felt like a knife was twisting in my heart. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. The sound of their kissing continued, but I didn't stay to torture myself. I staggered away and went back to the rest area. Half an hour later, Ethan came back with a bottle of water. He placed it in front of me and said apologetically, "Honey, I had to take a phone call. That's why it took so long. You weren't waiting too anxiously, were you?" Hearing him call me honey while the image of him kissing Chloe was still fresh in my mind made me feel sick. I took a sip of water to push down the nausea. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed the marks on my palm. He held my hand, worried. What happened here? I only then realized that my palm was bruised from clenching my fist so tightly. I pulled my hand away gently and said casually, "It must be from holding the reins too tightly." Ethan was concerned and wanted to take me to get some medicine, but I pulled away again. "No need. I'm going to go for another ride." Seeing him about to follow, I quickly added, "I want to ride by myself." He didn't follow. I was riding slowly, lost in my thoughts, and didn't notice Chloe approaching on her horse from the side. By the time I realized what was happening, her horse had bumped into mine, and my horse got spooked. Before it could bolt, I let go of the reins and rolled off to the side. I hit the ground hard and rolled once. When I lifted my head, I saw that Chloe had also fallen from her horse and was now being held in Ethan's arms. A sharp pain shot through my heart. Ethan saw me too and started to let go of Chloe. But just as he did, she reached out and grabbed him, clutching her stomach and murmuring weakly, "The baby." I watched him freeze. Then he wrapped his arms around Chloe again and looked at me with a pained expression. "Maya, she's pregnant. Let me take her to the hospital first." "Okay," I said. Watching him hold her so tightly, I felt waves of bitterness wash over me. I let out a silent, bitter laugh and just nodded faintly. With my permission, Ethan immediately picked Chloe up and rushed off. I watched his hurried figure, my heart overflowing with bitterness. A nearby staff member came and helped me up. "Miss, are you hurt?" I had gotten off the horse in time, so I wasn't seriously injured, just a little sore. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. I shook my head at the staff member and thanked him. I endured the pain and walked out of the riding arena only to find that the car was gone. How familiar this was. But this time, I didn't feel the same sharp pain as last time. I had already expected it, hadn't I? I took out my phone, called a car, and went home by myself. The exhaustion of the past few days made me fall asleep early. I didn't wait for Ethan, and I didn't care if he would come back or not. The next morning, I woke up to find Ethan sitting by my bed, watching me. He was smiling at my sleepy state, but when he saw the light in my eyes gradually fade, as if I wasn't really seeing him, a strange panic flickered in his eyes. He quickly picked up a box from the nightstand. He took out what was inside and carefully lifted my hand, placing a bracelet on my wrist. Then, he gently kissed the back of my hand, as if it were something precious. He held my hand and said, "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't take you to the hospital right away yesterday. Chloe is pregnant, and she's my friend's sister, so I should take care of her, don't you think?" "Friend's sister?" I lowered my head, a sarcastic smile on my lips. I looked at the bracelet. I recognized it as one I had once casually said was beautiful. It was very expensive. I remembered the words I had heard in the private room, and I murmured, "Not worth it." Ethan overheard me. His heart seemed to skip a beat. "What are you talking about? What's not worth it? Honey, you're absolutely worth it. You deserve more than this. You deserve all the beautiful things in the world." Hearing this, I let out a small laugh. I looked up at him and said, "I saw a plot on TV yesterday. The main characters were in a relationship, but the woman got engaged to someone else behind the man's back. Everyone was debating whether the man should forgive her. What do you think?" Ethan played with my hand and replied casually, "Of course he shouldn't forgive her." Hearing that, I gently pulled my hand away. I also think he shouldn't forgive her, I said. Before he could grab my hand again, I said I was hungry. Ethan immediately brightened up. Then I'll cook today. Honey, you go and freshen up. I'll call you when it's ready. With that, he happily went downstairs to cook. I watched him go, looking just the same as always, and took off the bracelet. I didn't deserve such an expensive bracelet, just like I didn't deserve him sacrificing his family's interests for me. 2 days later was my birthday. Ethan, who always spent the day with me, suddenly said he had something to do and celebrated with me a day early instead. I didn't ask what he had to do. If it were up to me, I wouldn't even celebrate my birthday at all. But when Ethan heard me say that, he became very serious. I promised to spend every birthday with you. We can't skip it. Hearing that, I let out a light laugh and thought to myself, this is the last time. From now on, you won't be a part of any of my birthdays. The cake was on the table. Ethan lit the candles and sang the birthday song, just like every other year. I closed my eyes and made a silent wish. I hope that after I leave Ethan, I can start a brand new life. After making my wish, I blew out the candles. Ethan looked at me and asked with a smile what I had wished for. I just lowered my head to cut the cake, whispering in my heart, to leave you. That night, while Ethan was out, I packed up all my things from the house. Then, I found all the photos we had taken together over the years and burned them in the backyard. Since the feelings they represented were gone, there was no need to keep them. I didn't take any of the gifts Ethan had given me. What wasn't mine, I wouldn't take. Just like Ethan was no longer mine, so I would no longer claim him. I went and got a new SIM card for my phone, since I wouldn't be using the current one after I left. There was no one I needed to contact anyway. After I was done, I sat in the garden, scrolling through videos on my phone. Suddenly, I came across a live interview. The person on the screen was someone I recognized. It was Chloe, standing in the middle of a lawn in a wedding dress. There was an arm around her waist, just out of the frame. So, the something important he had to do was go with Chloe to try on wedding dresses. The host's voice came through the phone. The groom doesn't want to show his face, so let's be understanding. Okay, first question, how did you two get together? Chloe laughed and said, an arranged marriage. The host was immediately surprised. You two look so sweet together. It doesn't seem like an arranged marriage at all. Chloe blushed and smiled shyly, glancing to the side. Then, Ethan's voice came through. Can't a marriage for political reasons also be true love? The host quickly apologized. Yes, that's right. Then he asked when their wedding would be. Ethan tilted his head slightly to look at Chloe. His eye, which was accidentally caught on camera, was filled with deep affection. In 4 days, it will be the grandest wedding and you'll all see it then. Instantly, the comments were flooded with 999, all sending their blessings. Looking at that affectionate profile, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand, a dull ache spreading through me. The sunlight, which should have felt warm, now just made me feel exposed. Every word of praise and blessing in the comments felt like a knife, slowly carving into my flesh. I had no place here. I was just a songbird in a cage, hidden away in the shadows. I let out a self-mocking laugh. That evening, Ethan came back with a box. It contained a dress. I recognized it at once as a bridesmaid's dress. I pushed down the ache in my heart and said calmly, "Do you want me to be a bridesmaid at your wedding?" As soon as I said it, Ethan looked anxious, thinking I had found out something. He asked blankly, "What? Isn't this a bridesmaid's dress?" I replied with a small laugh. Hearing that, Ethan seemed to let out a sigh of relief. He immediately threw the dress on the ground and said hastily, "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't know it was a bridesmaid's dress. I'll buy you a new one in a few days." After he said that, he came over and hugged me. If you're the bridesmaid, then who will be my bride? My bride can only be you. I lay quietly in his arms, silently adding in my head, "Of course it's Chloe who will be your bride." In the days before the wedding, Ethan stayed home with me. At first, I didn't understand why. Then, on the second day, I overheard him on the phone. "All right, Chloe, I have to keep her calm, don't I? That way, there won't be any trouble on the wedding day." Be good, okay? Hearing that, I silently smiled to myself. So they were afraid I would find out and ruin their wedding. They were thinking too much. The night before the wedding, Ethan held me tightly and said, Maya, stay home tomorrow and don't go out. I'll have a surprise for you when I get back in the evening. I didn't say anything, but he insisted on getting a verbal promise from me, so I reluctantly agreed. The next day, Ethan got up very early. Before he left, he bent down and kissed my forehead. After the sound of his car's engine faded away, I opened my eyes. I didn't get up. I just lay on my side, quietly looking out the window until the sun came up. When I picked up my phone, I realized the internet was disconnected. I went downstairs, grabbed the remote, and turned on the TV, only to find that there was no signal. Just then, the housekeeper came over, looking a little nervous. Madam, the residential complex is doing some network maintenance, so there might not be any internet all day. I didn't show any expression and said softly, Then I'll go out for a walk later. The housekeeper froze for a moment, rubbing her hands together before speaking. The master asked you to wait for him at home. Seeing her nervous expression, I glanced out the window and vaguely saw two bodyguards dressed in black standing at the entrance. I understood. This was Ethan's way of keeping me in the dark, of keeping me confined to the house. But you can't wrap fire in paper. Even if I didn't find out today, I would eventually. I let out a silent, cold laugh. I didn't give the housekeeper a hard time. I just said, Fine, I'll go upstairs to rest. Don't call me unless you have to. Back in my room, I packed the last of my things into my suitcase. Then, I took out the gift box I had bought. I placed my ring and the bracelet inside and left a note that said, Wishing you a happy marriage. Then, I tore the bed sheets into strips, tied them together, and threw one end out the second-floor window to climb down. I was never a caged bird. Ethan couldn't keep me here. After leaving the villa, I took the SIM card out of my phone and threw it into a nearby flower bed. Then, I inserted the new one. I went to the company that was handling my case and got my new identity and the plane ticket they had bought for me. Just as I was about to hail a cab to the airport, I heard someone nearby exclaim, Look, how romantic! I looked up and saw a large screen in the square, broadcasting a live feed of Ethan's wedding. The wedding was grand, truly the wedding of the century. At the center of the stage stood Chloe in her wedding dress and Ethan in his black suit. They looked so perfect together. I could hear people around me talking. What a fairy tale romance, a perfect match of talent and beauty. They're absolutely made for each other. Yeah, I heard he gave her a huge dowry, practically treats her like a princess. I'm so envious. On the screen, the couple began to exchange rings. Ethan's ring was already off his finger, the tan line from years of wearing it covered with foundation. Next came the groom kissing the bride. I lowered my aching neck and adjusted my baseball cap. Gasps sounded around me. I had watched his wedding to the very end, only to find that the bride wasn't me. I smiled to myself, a self-deprecating smile, and wiped away a tear that had fallen without my noticing. Then, I turned and hailed a taxi to the airport. At the airport, I waited in the departure lounge. While I was checking the time, my phone buzzed with an entertainment news alert. Almost as if I were possessed, I clicked on it, and I saw my own name. My name was right there between the names of the newlyweds. The article claimed I was the other woman who had seduced Ethan to ruin their relationship. Of course, this kind of thing still happened. I became the universally despised mistress. How shameless can this woman be? Good heavens, a girl from a small town dares to aim so high and climb the social ladder by targeting the Hayes family's only son. She should take a look at herself in the mirror first. Amid the curses, I knew no one around me had recognized me yet, but I still felt completely exposed. I had no intention of defending myself. After today, there would be no more Maya Reed in this world. I would leave everything from my past behind. Half an hour before the plane was scheduled to take off, I stood up and walked towards the boarding gate. As I walked, I overheard snippets of conversations. Why did the groom run out of the banquet hall? How could he just abandon the bride like that? But I kept walking without stopping, resolutely heading towards the gate. As the plane took off, I left everything behind, ready to start a brand new life. I moved to a small, remote town by the sea. The people were simple and honest, and life was quiet. It was everything I wanted. I opened a small guest house with a beautiful view of the ocean. It gradually became popular, and more people came to stay. I threw myself into my work and almost forgot about Ethan. About 6 months later, I saw something on the news. It was a press conference. Ethan was there, and so was Chloe. I watched as he sincerely addressed the cameras. Everything you've read online is false. They are just rumors. I fell in love with Maya in college. Chloe is my arranged marriage partner. Maya was completely unaware of this arrangement. I deceived her, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to her. His gaze was so sincere, as if he were sure I was watching. Then Chloe spoke. She confessed to her actions, to leaking the story about me, and she apologized. Watching her, humiliated in front of all those cameras, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just a strange emptiness. What's done is done. No amount of talking can change it. Life went on. I focused on my guest house, the sea breeze, the sound of the waves, the friendly faces of my guests. These were my new reality. I was happy, or at least I was content. Then, one day, he found me. I was standing outside the guest house talking to a guest when I saw him across the street. He looked thinner, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He just stood there, staring at me. After a dozen steps, I finally saw the person I had been longing to forget. He stared at me intently through the crowd, but I only glanced at him before turning away and heading back inside to work. I was surprised he had found me so quickly, but it didn't stir any strong emotions in me. I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. That evening, after most of the guests had left, I handed the front desk over to my employee and walked out to where he was still standing. When I reached him, I didn't stop walking. I just said softly, "Follow me." His eyes lit up, and he quickly followed. I walked to a quiet spot on the beach, then turned to face him. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice cold. He looked hurt. He walked up to me, his head lowered, and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Maya, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. I've already called off the engagement, and I've clarified the online rumors. I'm sorry." I watched him, his face full of repentance. But my heart was still. Did I ever imagine he would be like this? Yes, I had. In the first few weeks after I'd left, I would picture his regret. But after 6 months of my new life, I had let it go. Whether he regretted it or not had nothing to do with me anymore. So I just watched him quietly. Under my silent gaze, his palms grew sweaty. He looked like a sinner awaiting judgment. After a minute, I finally spoke. "This has nothing to do with me anymore. And you don't need to come looking for me." Hearing my clear rejection, his face fell. A wave of sorrow washed over him. He looked up at me, confused, and met my cold, emotionless eyes. He froze, his face filled with panic. "Maya," he stammered, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I love you, Maya. I truly can't live without you." "Enough," I interrupted him, a frown on my face. "No one is indispensable. Since we've come to this, you should just go back and go through with your arranged marriage. Stop bothering me." I knew his love was genuine, but so was his betrayal. And the reality of his betrayal was much more real to me now than his love. After I said that, I tried to walk past him, but he grabbed my arm. "Maya, no, I won't go through with the arranged marriage. I only love you." I didn't want to hear his belated excuses. My expression turned cold. I looked down at his hand on my arm. "Let go," I said. He let go, though reluctantly. The moment he released his grip, I walked away without looking back, as if he were some kind of disease. The sound of his footsteps didn't follow. I thought he would leave after that, but he didn't. The next day, he checked into my guest house. He chose times when there were fewer people around to try and talk to me. "I'm here to stay. Isn't this a guest house?" he'd say with an innocent expression, as if he were just any other guest. I couldn't bring myself to kick him out, so I just coldly checked him in. In the following days, he didn't bother me directly, but I could always feel his eyes on me. Whenever I looked his way, he would quickly look away. He was always on the phone or on his laptop, and I guessed he was busy with work. I had made myself clear, so I couldn't understand why he was still here. He didn't try to talk to me, and I didn't feel right about asking him to leave, so I just let it be. One night, I realized I was out of vegetables and went to the supermarket. It was a bit of a walk, but I decided to go on foot. On my way back, I ran into a group of drunk men. They smelled of alcohol and had lewd smiles on their faces as they surrounded me. "Hey, beautiful. What's a girl like you doing out so late by yourself?" I frowned and said coldly, "Get lost." I had been living here for a while and had never encountered anything like this. It was just bad luck. They just laughed and closed in on me. I felt a hint of panic. Just as I was about to try and fight my way out, I heard a shout. I turned and saw Ethan twisting one of the drunk's arms behind his back. I was stunned. The other drunks, seeing he was alone, rushed at him, but they were drunk and no match for him. They eventually ran off. As soon as they were gone, Ethan grabbed my shoulders, his voice anxious. "Maya, are you hurt? Did they touch you?" I shook my head and gently pulled away from him. Seeing I was okay, he finally let out a sigh of relief. He had gotten a few bruises in the fight. There was a dark bruise on his face that stood out against his pale skin. When he noticed me looking at it, he covered it with his hand and pretended to wince in pain. I rolled my eyes at his exaggerated act and turned to walk away. He was stunned for a moment, then lowered his hand and followed me. He followed me all the way back to my apartment, which was part of the guest house property. Just as I was about to open the door, he reached out and grabbed my arm. He looked at me with a sad expression and said, "I didn't have dinner today, I'm so hungry." I looked at him coldly and he met my gaze without flinching. I didn't know if his act would work, but he was willing to try anything. Finally, I walked inside without a word, but I left the door open. He knew this was permission to enter, and his face lit up with joy. He sat on my sofa, looking around the room, taking in every detail as if he could piece together the life I had lived without him. I went straight to the kitchen. I wasn't being soft-hearted. I was just taking this opportunity to make him leave for good. Half an hour later, I brought out a bowl of noodles and placed it on the dining table. I had already eaten. This was just for him. He knew that, and his heart started to race with excitement. He picked up his chopsticks and took a bite, savoring it. It had been so long since he had eaten a meal I had cooked. Back then, he wouldn't let me cook, only occasionally letting me make something for him when he had a craving. It had been a full year since he had last tasted my cooking. Eating this bowl of noodles, his heart swelled with excitement. He thought it was a sign that I was softening, but he didn't know this was his last meal. "After you finish this, go back to the city," I said indifferently. "Staying here won't change anything." He froze, the chopsticks in his hand. Then, he continued to eat as if he hadn't heard me. Seeing him like this, I frowned and was about to speak again when he cut me off. "The noodles taste the same as before. They haven't changed." Without waiting for a reply, he ate the last bite, then took the bowl and chopsticks to the kitchen to wash them. Whenever I tried to speak, he would say something nonsensical to interrupt me. After he finished the dishes, he walked out the door without looking at me. "I should go now. Thank you for the noodles." After he closed the door, he only made it a few steps before he had to stop and lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. I knew he was hurt, but I couldn't bring myself to care. He thought I was willing to forgive him, but I had just dealt him a heavy blow. He was a coward, repeatedly interrupting me when I tried to tell him to leave. In the following days, he didn't go back. He completely ignored me, and for a while, I almost forgot he was there. I even thought he had already left. But just when I was about to feel relieved, he appeared again, and this time, everyone knew about it. It was Valentine's Day, and the guest house was busy. Ethan showed up right in the middle of it all, holding a huge bouquet of flowers, a beaming smile on his face as he looked at me. There were gasps of surprise from inside and outside the shop, and soon everyone was outside looking up at the sky. "Oh my God, who is this for? This is so romantic." I was confused until I went outside and saw the drones in the sky. Then I understood. The drones were performing, changing formations every few seconds, spelling out words of confession. I knew it must be Ethan. He was the only one here who knew me. When I turned to look at him, I was met with his deeply affectionate gaze. I wasn't moved. These were all things he had done for me before. It was the same person, but so much had changed. The night breeze brushed against my face, lifting my hair. He held the flowers and locked eyes with me as he walked towards me, one step at a time. For a moment, it felt like we were back in college when he was chasing me. Back then, he had also nervously held flowers, walking towards me. But the excitement then was the excitement of hope. Now it was the tension of loss. He stopped in front of me and held out the bouquet. "Happy Valentine's Day, Maya," he said softly. I didn't look at the flowers. I kept my eyes on him. Then, I took out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it to my ear. I looked straight at him and said, "Hello. There are drones flying illegally by the beach on Minley Street. Please take care of it." Every word I said reached his ears. His hand froze in midair. His eyes were still on me, but all I felt was a bone-chilling coldness. In less than 5 minutes, the drones by the shore started to fall, one after another, crashing into the sea. "What's going on? Why did they all fall?" people around us murmured. He shouldn't have been able to hear them from so far away, but I could almost see the sound of the drones crashing into the sea ringing in his ears. It was as if they were crashing straight into his heart, leaving him breathless. Suddenly, my hand felt light. He had taken the flowers from my hand. I stared at him blankly, unable to understand what he was doing. For the first time, I found him so hard to read. It was as if I had never really understood him at all. I took the flowers and lowered my head to smell them. The fragrance was as sweet as I remembered, but it no longer made me feel anything. Only the memories remained. And one should never live in the past. I let out a small laugh, and under his puzzled gaze, I tossed the flowers into a nearby trash can. The thud of the flowers hitting the bottom of the can seemed to strike his heart, leaving his face pale. I raised my head to meet his eyes and said calmly, "Ethan, don't waste your effort." Hearing my rejection again, he didn't feel the sharp pain I expected. It seemed he had gotten used to it. Every minute of every day after I left, his heart ached. He had become numb. The smile on his face turned bitter. "Maya, are you still unwilling to forgive me? What do I have to do for you to give me another chance? I deeply regret my decisions. The 6 months after you left were like a living hell for me. I can't lose you again." My expression didn't change. No matter how much he regretted it, or how much he suffered, it couldn't change what had happened. "It's no use, Ethan. There's no possibility for us anymore." Those words seemed to drain all the strength from him. His eyes filled with helplessness and confusion. He was so unfamiliar to me now. I didn't know how to respond, so I just let him turn and walk away, powerless to do anything. That sentence was my final judgment on him. A smart person would know not to keep trying. But Ethan was clearly not that smart. He still didn't give up. Before, he had just watched me from a distance. Now, he started to openly pursue me. He bought me breakfast, sent me flowers, helped me move things. They were ordinary gestures, but ones I couldn't ignore. Every time I threw the flowers in the trash in front of him, he would look down for a moment, then act as if nothing had happened. Only he knew that the walls around his heart were crumbling, piece by piece. He didn't know when they would collapse completely. And only I could save him. He didn't dare ask for my answer, knowing how hard it would be to hear what he wanted. So he just foolishly chased after me. One day he followed me to the beach where I usually walked. I didn't stop, but today I did. I stopped halfway. He also stopped a few steps away, waiting. When I didn't move, he realized I was waiting for him. He told himself not to get his hopes up, but he couldn't help but feel a secret joy. He walked up to me, his voice nervous. "Maya." I kept looking at the sea. "Do you remember we said we'd come to see the sea together?" I asked softly. He paused, surprised. His thoughts drifted back to the past, to when we had just gotten together in college. He learned that I loved the sea, and he said, "Let's go to the beach for our graduation trip." I had agreed with a smile. But then, after graduation, his parents found out he wanted to marry me, and it caused a huge fight. The promise was forgotten. Then, when everything was finally settled, He said we would go to the seaside for New Year's Eve in 2024. But what was he doing then? He had completely forgotten that promise, only thinking about his arranged marriage. A sharp pain shot through his chest like a knife twisting in his heart. He stared at my profile, unconsciously raising a hand as if to touch me, but he only grasped at the empty air. Then, I turned to look at him, unfazed by his strange gesture. There seemed to be something familiar in my eyes, but it was gone in a flash. Ethan, you've been here for over half a month. What exactly are you trying to do? Half a month? It felt like an eternity to him. He let out a bitter laugh, his voice hoarse. Maya, during the time you were gone, I thought a lot. I thought about the pain you went through, and then about the stupid things I did. In the end, all that was left were the beautiful memories we shared. The conclusion I came to is that I can't let you go. I've truly, deeply realized my mistakes. And I've also realized that I truly can't live without you. So, Maya, I'm begging you, please give me a chance to make it up to you, okay? I will definitely make it up to you and we'll go back to how we were before. Okay, Maya, I'm begging you. A chance? I let out a sarcastic chuckle. You were already given your chance, but you didn't cherish it. When you were pursuing me, you also asked me to give you a chance to treat me well. I gave it to you. And what was the result? I was left covered in scars. Now you're asking for another chance? I'm telling you there isn't one. No more chances. I'm not someone who dwells on the past. Once a chance is gone, it's gone forever. His face fell, his back bent as if under a heavy weight. His throat was so tight he couldn't speak. The pain in his heart was like a knife, making it hard to breathe. This is where we end, I said finally. With that, I turned and walked away. He stood there as if nailed to the spot, watching me disappear into the distance. When I was completely out of sight, he felt his world go dark. There wasn't a glimmer of light left. He didn't know how long he stood there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Finally, he could feel his limbs again. He wasn't sure if that was a final ultimatum, but he still refused to give up. But he could clearly feel my resistance. It was like two little voices were arguing in his head. One told him not to give up, to keep trying. The other told him to listen to me and let it go. They fought constantly, and he didn't know what to do. He couldn't imagine waking up in the morning and not seeing me. That inner turmoil finally broke him one morning. He hadn't seen me at the shop for 2 days. At first, he thought we had just missed each other, but by the second day, he realized something was wrong. He rushed to the front desk, his voice urgent. "Where's your boss?" The receptionist knew he was pursuing me and was startled by his frantic appearance. She didn't speak for a long moment. He asked again before she finally said, "The boss said she had something to do and would be away for a few days." "Where did she go?" "I don't know. The boss didn't say." He went back to his room and sat on the bed, his eyes hollow, staring at nothing. Gone. She was gone again. She had left him behind once more. The fortress in his heart collapsed, and he felt himself sinking into a bottomless darkness. I had just gone to meet some friends. They had been asking me to visit for a while, but it was the peak travel season. Now that things had slowed down, I went. I was no longer connected to Ethan, so I didn't feel the need to tell him. That's why he, in his sensitive state, thought I was running away again. When I saw him at the hotel entrance, I frowned. He was really like a ghost that wouldn't leave me alone. He noticed there was someone else with me and realized I might just be there for fun, not to escape. He seemed to feel relieved. Since there were other people around, he didn't act rashly and just followed me quietly. When I was finally alone, he couldn't hold back anymore. He strode up to me, his eyes already red. He grabbed my shoulders, his voice trembling with a panic he couldn't hide. "I thought you'd run away again. I thought you'd abandoned me once more." Thank goodness, thank goodness. His voice trailed off. What was he thankful for? I hadn't run away, but that didn't mean I had forgiven him. Despair flooded his heart. Tears welled up in his eyes, but he kept his head down, not wanting me to see his weakness. But the words that came out were choked with sobs. "Maya, I really can't live without you. Please don't leave me. I beg you." He couldn't think of any other way to make me stay. In his desperation, he resorted to this, hoping it would soften my heart, but he truly didn't understand me. I would never soften my heart towards someone who had hurt me. He kept pleading, I'm sorry, Maya. Don't leave me, don't go." It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. I was surprised for a moment, then went back to my usual self. There's no reason in the world to forgive someone just because they shed a few tears. I gathered my strength and broke free from his grasp. I made it very clear that day. There's no possibility for us anymore. Don't let our past beautiful memories be completely tainted by this. He staggered back 2 steps, his heart feeling as if it were being sliced by 1,000 knives. He remembered the ring around his neck and hurriedly took it off, holding it out to me with trembling hands, desperately grasping at this last bit of hope. His words came out in a jumble. "Maya, do you remember this ring? You promised we'd stay together forever. You can't break that promise now. Let's get married as soon as we go back, okay?" I let out a sarcastic chuckle. I remembered the past too, which only made it feel more ironic. My promise was based on his. If he didn't even keep his own word, why should I? Don't you find it ridiculous when you say that yourself? Let's just leave each other alone, okay? Don't make me look back on this relationship with nothing but pain. He said nothing more, only silent tears continued to fall. After that day, I stayed there for a week. I could always see his figure around. He didn't try to talk to me, just stared blankly in my direction. I stopped paying attention to him. I knew he was lost in his thoughts. He would leave once he figured things out. And he had decided to leave. My words had awakened him. She said she didn't want to recall only pain. He finally stopped fooling himself into thinking I would come back. It took him 7 months to accept that I had left. Then he spent half a month forcing himself to leave. On a very ordinary day, he boarded a plane back to his home country. My departure had been earth-shattering. His was silent and unnoticed. I heard later, through a mutual acquaintance who had seen a news report, that he had shut himself in his home, refusing to see anyone. It was like he had gone back to how he was right after I left. Only this time there was no hope left in his heart, only despair. Then I heard about the car crash. It was all over the news. Chloe, consumed by hatred, had crashed her car into his. She got a minor injury. He was severely injured and remained in a coma for over half a year. She was sentenced to life in prison. When I heard the news, I felt a strange sense of detachment. It was like watching a movie about someone else's life. It was a tragedy, but it wasn't my tragedy anymore. He finally woke up. When he opened his eyes to the sterile white hospital room, his memories came flooding back. His first thought was, why didn't the accident kill me? Waking up only to face a world without me, he might as well have died. But maybe fate wanted him to stay awake and atone for his sins. He had a slight limp when he first started walking. The doctors said he might be disabled for life, but his expression remained unchanged. He didn't ask who had hit him. His mother told him it was Chloe, out of hatred for him making her abort their child. He wasn't surprised. He deserved the hatred. He had done so many terrible things. This was just karma. One day, he checked the date and realized the next day was my birthday. He immediately called his assistant and asked him to book a flight to my town. The assistant tried to talk him out of it, saying his leg wasn't ready for travel, but he wouldn't listen. Tomorrow is her birthday. I promised I'd always be there to celebrate with her. I can't break my promise again. If you won't book it, I'll do it myself. I'm going no matter what. The next morning, he dragged his injured body onto a plane with his assistant following him out of concern. After getting off the plane, he went straight to a bakery to buy a cake. He insisted on buying it himself. By the time he was done, it was already afternoon. He carried the cake and nervously went to my guest house. He didn't see me there. He asked the front desk, and the receptionist was startled to see him. He asked again, and she finally said, "The boss went to the beach." He walked to the beach, telling his assistant to wait. He stepped onto the sand and saw me sitting there. He tried his best to walk normally, gritting his teeth against the pain in his leg as he crouched down in front of me. I was surprised to see him and even more puzzled by his appearance. He held out the exquisite cake. "Maya, happy birthday," he said softly. "I promise to celebrate your birthday with you every year." I was stunned for a moment. He had already unwrapped the cake and lit the candles. He sang the birthday song, his voice clumsy. Then he asked me to make a wish. Under his urging gaze, I finally closed my eyes. He watched me greedily, not wanting to miss a single second. Each glance was one less he would have. I didn't make a wish. Wishes are just empty things, comforts that don't come true. I just needed to live my life well. I didn't need wishes. After a few seconds, I opened my eyes and met his burning gaze. I remained indifferent. When he was about to cut the cake for me, I spoke up. "No need, I've already eaten today." He knew it was time to leave. If he didn't, I would eventually drive him away. He lowered his head and let out a bitter laugh. "Happy birthday," he said hoarsely. "May you have peace and a smooth life ahead." Then he stood up, controlling his steps as he turned to leave. Suddenly, my voice came from behind him. "Let this promise end this year." His body stiffened. A stubborn tear fell despite himself. He didn't turn back. "Okay," he replied hoarsely. Then he hesitated and added, "Now, when I look back, is there only pain?" He stood frozen, his hands clenched, waiting for my response. A few seconds, or maybe minutes passed. I couldn't tell. "No," I said. "There was beauty, too." He was stunned for a moment. A smile tugged at the corner of his lips as tears fell uncontrollably. He responded with a muffled, and continued walking forward. That one sentence was enough. That sentence would sustain him for a lifetime. I watched him go, his limp more noticeable now. His leg would never fully recover. He no longer appeared before me, but sometimes I felt a pair of eyes on me from a distance. I didn't know when his maddening longing would fade. Perhaps it wouldn't stop until the day he died. But that was his life to live, and I had mine. I turned back to the sea, the waves washing away the last of the footprints in the sand.